afternoon all, and welcome to the first episode of the Euphoric Man Podcast. How are we doing? And generally, when I say how are we doing, really I mean it, because when you ask someone how they're doing, they say, I'm all right, I'm okay. But you never get the truth, really. People don't really like to be honest about what's going on. They don't want to express their vulnerability, or maybe they feel they're burdening someone, or perhaps it's that they feel they're going to be judged. So I'm genuinely asking how things going. Why? Because that's what I'm interested in. And big part of this podcast, the Euphoric Man Podcast, is going to be about well-being for men, how to be the best you can. And not just that, lots of fun subjects as well. We're going to probably do some interviews at some stage. We've got some good buddies. One mate of which he's on YouTube at the moment with a boxing/MMA/sport channel. At some stage, we're going to have a chat with him as well. So lots of different topics to explore. But I am generally interested, being a psychotherapist, being a coach in men's mental health. And you can check me out on my website, euphoricmancoaching.co.uk. You can also email me. It's theeuphoricman@gmail.com. And of course, feel free to post any comments below as well if you ask any questions as well. I'm here, I'm happy, and I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. So let's get stuck in, shall we? What should we talk about today? What should we talk about? It's going to be a variety of topics. Today's going to be a mental health topic, or it's mental stroke physical. It's going to be on masturbation and porn addiction. Yes, it's a topic that I hear many, many times. I would say 50% of my clients come to me, excuse the pun, talking about masturbation and porn issues. Usually from a negative perspective. It's usually like, I feel guilt, I feel shame. My wife, my girlfriend found out. I feel guilty. I want to make it up to them. Blah blah blah. All that kind of stuff. But there's many different perspectives outside that which men bring to me concerning masturbation and pornography. And I just wanted to do a really broad chat about the subject because I think it's really interesting. I think it's really misunderstood, and like I say, it carries a lot of negative connotations as well, and I don't think that's right. I think we have to be balanced in the way we look at something. So let's take a look. Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time and start off with the history of masturbation, right? Where I started, when I started doing some research on this, I was interested in the history, and I came across the earliest history would be prehistoric rock paintings depicting masturbation, and they depicted both male and female depictions of masturbation. But interestingly, it's the male depictions that really stood out for obvious reasons, right? And I find that really interesting in itself. I mean, let's take a brief look at that. There is a covert nature to masturbation and sex overall, or it might be seen as sordid and dark and wrong from some cultures, and certainly online there's this sort of dark, entrenched sort of side to the internet, which actually I think the internet started through porn. Anyway, I'm digressing. We're going to move on from these prehistoric rock depictions. Ancient Egypt, male masturbation was very important. It coincided with a creative or magical act. Now, this is unsurprising because if you think about sperm, it's life-giving, right? Now, apparently the god Atum created the universe by masturbating to an ejaculate. So again, in ancient Egypt, it was seen to be life-giving, and it is. And even if we look at the ancient Sumerians, they had a very relaxed attitude to sex, and they widely believed that masturbating enhanced sexual potency for men and women. And so, something that enhances sexual potency, seduction, virility, that's something that the ancient Sumerians were really into. In fact, their god Enki was believed to have created the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers by masturbating and ejaculating into the empty riverbed. So, the idea, this is what I wanted to start with, is something you probably would have considered, is that masturbation in some of the ancient cultures was seen to be life-giving, seen to be good, seen to be something that enhanced sexual potency, and it was all positive, right? Now, let's move a bit further on, because there's something else you probably didn't consider unless you've read the book. Now, there's a great book called Sperm Wars by a chap called Robin Baker. Please read this book. It is absolutely brilliant. It talks about sperm in a way that I never, ever would have imagined existed. Right? You know, this is something that we as men hold, we carry, we produce daily. And yet, we should know, we don't know our biology, but we should know our biology. So listen to this. Sperm not only comprise of egg getters, those sperm that travel and move towards the egg, but also blockers. So we have blockers that are there to protect, so that if, for example, our partner went and cheated and, another man ejaculated into our partner, then we have these blockers that have a toxin in the top of the sperm, that would bounce headfirst into the alien sperm and kill them. What the hell? Is that not incredible? When I read that, it just blew my mind. I could not believe what I was reading. But that's a fantastic book. Obviously, that's a tiny, tiny aspect of that. What I found really interesting, though, was that masturbation is linked to producing or getting rid of older sperm and making sure that your sperm column is younger. Because if you have a younger sperm column, you have a better opportunity of impregnating your wife, your girlfriend, get her pregnant. It's just a better opportunity. This, by the way, all this stuff I'm talking about, this is not something that's conscious. This is all completely unconscious, yeah? Now, a man might think, oh, I'm just going to masturbate before I meet my girlfriend or so on. Not understanding why. But unbelievably, it's usually linked to various factors. Number one could be an intuitive factor, in that he's aware that, you know, she's at a prime time in her cycle. Again, this is picked up unconscious cues, and therefore it's a good time to have sex. And second, like I say, from another unconscious biological perspective, it suits sperm to be let out as a younger column in order to impregnate the woman. So unbelievable. Check that book out. But again, another thing that you probably wouldn't have considered. There's a hell of a lot more in that book. It's going to blow your mind. And you know what I like about it? It's written in like a story narrative. It's really interesting. It's not written as a boring scientific book. He has done some earlier stuff on that, but I think this book's particularly good. Then we get to the next part, which is the typical thing that guys bring to me. And I'm going to segue into that via a film that I watched years ago, and it always sticks with me. You ever seen American Beauty? There's a character in it, and it's played by Kevin Spacey, a guy called Lester Burnham. And there's one point in the film, and he masturbates a couple of times in the film, but at one point in the film, he is laying down in bed with his wife, and she doesn't know what he's doing, but he's masturbating, and then she turns around, she says, "That's disgusting," and he says, "Oh, what's the matter? You know, I'm just choking the bishop." Men have a lot of different names, right? We've got lots of different names for masturbating. Playing with your pocket-sized Elvis, there you go, there's another one. I know it sounds, any ladies listening, no, it sounds crude, sounds crass, just a bit of fun talk. And, you know, you've got to have a bit of playfulness about this subject, because, again, when men come to me talking about that subject, it's often that they feel it's disgusting, it's wrong, they've been shamed, they feel guilty. So let's just go into that. What clients feel, their feelings, their emotions, when they actually come to therapy, when they contact me. I've written something about this on the counselling directory, so I'm going to sort of run through the bits and pieces that clients usually bring to me. Let's just pull this up, and why they sort of come to therapy about masturbation. So let's start. Obviously, guilt. They call it disruptive, destructive, shameful. Maybe their partner found out about it. Often that's the case, and they want to feel like they need to justify themselves. They've done something wrong, and then of course that messes with the relationship, right? Because of course the way men and women see masturbation is very, very different. And often, I've had women contact me saying that, I feel like, he's cheating, it's disrespectful, it's shameful, I wouldn't do that sort of thing. Well, no, you wouldn't. If you think about the porn industry, it's very much geared towards men. Obviously, men, when it comes to porn, do objectify women. Now, it sounds terrible to say, oh, it's terrible, men shouldn't do that. Well, we do. Men love the female form. It's not a bad thing. They love the female form. And sex sells, and it's a huge thing online. Whether you see it as right and wrong, that is a fact of biological nature. And, if you want to take principles, values, morals all out of it, that's the way it is, okay? Don't argue with me, argue with nature. That's just the way it is, yeah? Okay. What else are they feeling when they come to me? They say it could be, for example, and this is something that they don't usually understand until we talk about it in therapy, but it could be familial religious guilt. So for example, being brought up in a culture, a family centered around a particular faith, which views sex as a sacrilege before marriage, or something which isn't to be spoken of, or perhaps being raised within a non-liberal environment where sex isn't talked about. So there's a lot of guilt that can stem from these experiences, and covertly viewing pornography is a way for that person to explore their body sexually, understand themselves. And again, it's just something normal, but it can bring a tremendous amount of guilt if in their family, from whatever religion, the religion's perspective is seen as bad, disgusting, spawn of the devil, that kind of stuff. And that can lead to all sorts of things. It's led to men having trouble getting erections. From my perspective, I've seen that as well. And all manner of issues, like I say. Maybe they come to me because there's been a meaningful sexual experience. So often guys have come to me talking about the fact that there's been a problem when they had their first sexual experience. Maybe they were shamed. Maybe they couldn't get a hard on. Maybe it was perceived as a failure. Maybe it was highly traumatic. For example, maybe there was some sort of abuse to do with that as well. So, and even in those perspectives, even with, for example, abuse and so on, watching explicit material can be a way of gaining control or attempting to understand past experiences. So, but again, alongside that, the common feelings that men would get would be shame and guilt. Of course, men that come to me with porn and masturbation worries and concerns don't come to me because they perceive it as positive, okay? Death of a significant other. Loss and grief can be highly complex depending on the relationship you shared with a loved one. So masturbation can be a way of dealing with intense emotions elicited by the loss. But one of the major things that guys come to me about is to do with they're masturbating more so than they usually would because of anxiety, worry, boredom, and anger. And I think anger runs through all of these: uncertainty, disempowerment, and all of these things can be used as a distraction through masturbation from these uncomfortable feelings. So if you feel anxious, worried, bored, and angry, that it can be a release to be able to masturbate to porn for a guy. Anger in particular is a way of dealing with something that's uncontrollable, uncertain, that's going on in your life, and a way of releasing and dealing with that situation because you feel a lack of control. It's it can be a big release. In fact, one of my clients called it a tranquilizer, and I think that fits really, really well. The idea that you are almost injecting yourself with a chemical to make yourself feel better. All these chemicals released during masturbation, released during when a man ejaculates. Okay, so we have dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, a neurochemical, and it's a pleasure chemical. Okay, so it gives us pleasure when it's released. We have norepinephrine, which improves energy and attentiveness. Serotonin, which helps regulate mood. oxytocin, which is, the love chemical, the cuddle hormone, as they call it. Interestingly, oxytocin is released less so in men than it is in women. In fact, after sex, women have a higher level of oxytocin released than men, which is probably why, they call it the cuddle hormone, more kind of suited to women than men, because oxytocin is more released. So women more likely to want that cuddle, that post-coital cuddle after sex, which is interesting. Again, vasopressin, another chemical which is linked to attachment, nitric oxide, and the hormone prolactin, which gives you feelings of satisfaction. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It's normal to want to feel pleasure. It's not normal to want to move towards pain. We want to move towards pleasure. And of course, pain is a major thing. When guys bring masturbation and porn issues to me, is a major reason why they come to me in therapy. They want to get rid of the pain, they want to experience pleasure, and they're realising that they're experiencing that pleasure through masturbation. And maybe it's got out of control, it's got out of hand. So let's zoom in and look at the types of porn that guys have expressed that they've looked at when they come to me in therapy. I've had guys talk about cuckoldry, where, for example, they would be turned on at a video whereby they're imagining their wife or girlfriend having sex with someone else and they're watching. Yeah, and it's like that. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you enjoy watching. It's gone over my head for the time being anyway. But a voyeur, that's it. It's a voyeur. Okay, so they enjoy being a voyeur and watching and getting turned on by their women having sex with other men. So there's that. Okay. Gangbangs, rough sex, that kind of stuff. Some of this is going to sound horrific. For example, rape. And I've had both men and women in therapy talk about rape fetishes, rape fantasies. And again, I want to make a point here, really important point. This is fantasy. When we talk about pornography, it's fantasy. 9.999 times out of 10, people aren't actualizing this in real life. It's not real life stuff. It's an idealism. Of course, some do, but it's an idealism. So when we talk about rape and stuff like that, that's to do with control, dominance, and perhaps a guy who, for example, likes the idea of dominating because perhaps he feels that he isn't strong in his life, or he feels disempowered, that something like that would be a turn on. Same as, like, for example, fisting. I would put that in the same camp as well. The idea that you're dominating a woman. And again, like I say, often guys come to me talking about that kind of stuff where they're disempowered in their life. More on that in a while, actually, because that appears to be a big theme. Being directed by a woman. So that's the opposite, isn't it? Liking and being turned on and seduced by the idea of a woman dominating them. Female domination, pegging, being wrestled to the ground, yeah? So, yeah, and you wouldn't imagine, all kinds of men would come up with this information, and often it's quite difficult for them to talk about, and eventually they do say that. The reason it's difficult is because, this is seen to be shameful in society. I could never tell anyone this, they would say, And so the idea of actually expressing that to someone like me is emancipating. I'm not going to sit there and judge. I'm not going to say, ha, 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 you like this or that, the other. That's not what I would do. I'm more interested in the reasons why they like that. What's going on in their lives. How is their family background? What were their experiences like? Because all of that tells me why they are interested in particular types of porn, or why they moved up in the pecking order from what we might call normal porn all the way up to that, for example. So, but I really want to sort of, talk about something that appears to be a huge pattern that I've seen with regards to porn and masturbation. I have to say, it is to do with disempowerment, uncertainty, and just generally feeling rotten in life, and that you feel uncertain, you're not confident, maybe things aren't going too well, and that seems to be a major reason why guys would come to me with masturbation or porn issues, and a major reason why porn would go from just normal masturbation to maybe once, twice a week, or once a month, or whatever it is, to something that appears to be more what we call an addiction, what they would call an addiction. You know, they would say, I'm doing it now more than ever. I'm doing it every day, or, you know, twice a day or 3 times a day or something like that. It's getting out of control. Now, in those times, there are often times where the guy is really struggling. He wants to really eradicate the pain, and he's feeling anxiety, depression, anger, something like that. He's trying to deal with it, and he's using masturbation as a way to do that. So it's not to be judged, it's to be understood, right? There's a lot of bashing that goes on. Oh, it's disgraceful, you know, my man does this and the other. I can understand it from a lady's perspective, I can, but at the same time, that's no good. That doesn't help the situation by disempowering a guy who's talking about that kind of stuff, yeah, and outing him and shaming him. Okay, so it tends to be those cases. And funny enough, through lockdown, I've had a lot of guys come to me talking about the fact that they've been masturbating a lot more. And when I have checked with them, it's that they feel disempowered in the relationship. They don't feel they're able to lead in that situation. Maybe they've lost their job, okay? Maybe they're really angry that they don't feel they had the confidence they used to have. Something big has happened. Like I say, it could be a loss of job, could be a death. Just a general uncertainty and fears about, you know, money issues or anything like that. Lack of purpose is a big one. And then they will turn to masturbation in order to deal with that. And this is something that people, you know, again, don't want to talk about. It's like, you know, we don't want to talk about that. That's not right to talk about. Well, we need to talk about that. And this is what the Euphoric Man Podcast is about, talking about subjects like this. And I think it's really important. So what next? Do you know what? I guess excuse the squeaky chair there. Guess I'm going to put it across to you guys, yeah? Just a question, you know, is this something that plays on your mind? Is this something that you feel has got out of control for you? Is this a topic that you have enjoyed me talking about? Is this something you'd like me to talk about in more detail at some stage? And let me know. You can direct mail me on euphoricman@gmail.com. If you are happy to put comments below, feel free to do so. But I know it's a bit of a sensitive subject. And let me ask you a question. This is just for you to just answer yourself. If you do feel it's got out of control, ask yourself, is it due to a lack of direction? Is it to ease anxiety? Are you venting anger? And in which case, how? You know, what kind of porn are you watching? What are your worries about that subject? You know, does it make you feel relaxed? Does it give you a release from the pain? Is it just, for example, you just masturbate to pleasure now and again? I mean, that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Is it that, for example, you want some variety? Okay, maybe you've been with the same woman for a long, long time. This is another thing. And relationships can get stale. They can get boring. Maybe you got boring. Maybe you've rested into that comfort quicksand in a relationship and you're looking for that variety. Is it that? Or maybe, like I say, a lack of excitement in a relationship. What is it? Do you suffer shame, guilt, those kind of things? I'm just putting all these things out there because this is the kind of stuff that guys talk to me about. And I want you to have a little think about that. If you do want to talk about this on a personal level, please contact me, euphoricman@gmail.com. Check out my website as well. euphoricmancoaching.co.uk is my website. So check that out as well. Feel free to book a session with me or a batch of sessions and we can really thrash this out. Other than that, let's just keep chatting and I'm looking forward to the next podcast. I don't know what it's going to be on, what topic. I've got a million in my head. So I look forward to chatting to you guys again. If you'd like more content, don't forget, click the like button, subscribe if you'd like to hear more on this and on me. and we should take it from there. It's been awesome chatting to you, and I look forward to speaking next time. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.